Before we start our hair coloring services, we got to understand about the hair itself, and this should be repetitious to y'all. It's simply the study of the structure of a client's hair. That is going to determine how her hair will react to color, what's underneath the color that we see, because if we start lightening a little bit, that's going to be what's going to happen. We're going to see the undertones. So we want to understand how this hair is built so we can go on with it. Some hair color products may cause a dramatic change in the structure of the hair, while others cause relatively little change. And what we're referring to then, if you use temporary or semi-permanent hair color on a person, the structure of their hair is not going to change at all because we have no chemical reaction. But if we use permanent hair color or lighteners, then that hair structure is going to change from what it is at this point. Knowing how products affect the hair will allow you to make the best product choices for your client. The structure of hair. The hair is composed of three main parts. The cuticle, that's the outermost layer. It has no coloring matter in it. It's transparent. It's like scales on a fish's back, and it's put there simply for protection. It contributes about 20% of the overall strength of the hair. So if those cuticle scales are closed down really tightly on that hair, the hair is said to be resistant. And any product we put on it is going to have to work hard to raise those cuticle scales. Got to be a chemical treatment then. The cortex is the middle layer and gives the hair strength and elasticity. A healthy cortex contributes about 80% to the overall strength of the hair. It contains the natural pigment called melanin, which determines if we're blondes, brunettes, or redheads. And that's why when we put a hair color product on, through our analysis, we first got to decide what's in there, what's in that pigment. Our hair melanin is not going to be exactly what we see on the head. When we begin to lighten, we're going to see the cool tones or the warm tones. Melanin granules are scattered between the cortex cell like chips in a chocolate chip cookie. Now I want to talk to y'all about that for just a moment. And the book gives you a good picture here of it, and you'll often hear me refer to it as the chocolate chips. People that have medium brown hair all have the same number of granules in their hair. If their hair is fine, it may appear to be darker than medium brown because those granules are so tightly compacted. Like if you make a cookie that's that big around and put 20 chocolate chips in it, it's going to look darker than a cookie that size with 20 chocolate chips. And this is what the book is referring to here. So we have to be real careful in analyzing the color of the hair, because no matter how closely they're compacted together, we've still got the 20 chocolate chips. Medium brown hair, for medium texture hair, is going to appear a little lighter than for fine. And coarse hair with medium brown may appear to be lighter, but we've still got those 20 granules we have to deal with as we color hair. You understand what I'm saying? So we've got to really make a comparison. And when we get into the levels of color, I'm going to show you how we make those comparisons so you can see a little better. So don't let the fine, medium, or coarse hair confuse you as far as color. The medulla is the innermost layer of the hair, sometimes absent from the hair, and plays a very minor role in the hair coloring process, so we don't worry about that. People with fine hair have no medulla. People with medium hair don't have medulla lots of times. People with coarse hair may have one. Hair texture is determined by the diameter of the individual hair strand. Large, medium, and small diameter hair strands translate into coarse, medium, and fine hair textures. Melanin is distributed differently within the different textures, and that's what we were just talking about now. In fine hair, we've still got those 20 granules, and I'm just throwing 20 out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how many they are. The melanin granules in fine hair are grouped more tightly, so the hair takes color faster and looks darker. Medium textured hair has an average response to hair color products, and coarse textured hair has a large diameter, may take longer to process. Density. Density is how many hairs per square inch we have, and it does play a role in hair coloring. Hair density is the number of hairs per square inch. It can range from thin to thick. Density must be taken into account when applying hair color to assure proper coverage. And what we mean by that, if we've got 50 million hairs up here, they're compacted closely together, they're going to look darker than somebody that only has 200. You know, because you pile it on and it gets a lot less light. Porosity is the ability to absorb liquids or moisture. Porous hair accepts hair color faster and permits darker colors than less porous hair. Y'all remember that from permanent waving? If the hair is porous, it grabs the permanent waving solution, processes faster. The same thing's going to occur with our hair color products. Low porosity. Usually when we think of low, we think it's a bad thing. If we get a low grade, that's not so good, is it? But in porosity, low is the healthier hair. The cuticle is tight. The hair is resistant, which means it's difficult for moisture or chemicals to penetrate. It requires a longer processing time. But it's healthier hair. It's going to be shinier. Average porosity is when the cuticle is slightly raised. The hair is normal and processes in an average amount of time. High porosity is the cuticle is lifted. The hair is overporous. It takes hair color quickly. The color also tends to fade quickly because it doesn't have the cuticle scales on top of it to hold it in. We want to be really careful when we're putting color on hair with high porosity. Why? Why do we want to be careful in adding color to hair with high porosity? You're going to do more damage to it if you're not careful. Natural hair color. Learning to identify a client's natural color is the most important step in becoming a good colorist. And here's what weeds out the educated from the uneducated in hair coloring. When we go somewhere and buy a box of color, and this is as a consumer, it shows a picture on the front of the box. And we assume when we put that color on the hair, it's going to turn that color. Is it going to? No. Because that picture on the front of that box, that color was applied to pale yellow hair. And it's going to take whatever's in that bottle. But if we've got, let's say we've got medium red on the front of the box, that's the picture, and that's what we're shooting for. And we put it on black hair, what we going to wind up with?
Like a light black?
A what?
Like a purple tint.
Purple tint. We're still going to have almost black hair, aren't we? So that's why we've got to study the levels of hair and know what the natural hair color is and know what we're going to run into underneath there. We're going to choose colors by level. When that client comes in, she's going to choose a color, and then we're going to determine her natural level, and we're going to decide how strong of peroxide we have to use, how light of a color we have to use. Are we going to have to remove some color before we can even deposit the color she's chosen? The boxes don't tell you all that, do they? But if you will flip that box around, there is some more pictures on the back of it, and we usually don't pay it any attention because it's in little groupings here. And there's usually not but 3 of them because those colors are only meant to change the hair 3 levels. And it's going to say, if your natural color is this, it's going to show that color on it. If your natural color is this, it's going to show how to look on it. And if it's this, it's going to show you how to look on it. It doesn't show any other colors because it's not going to work and create that color on them. So we got to understand what the natural hair color is. Natural hair color ranges from black to dark brown to red, and from dark blonde to light blonde. Hair color is unique to each individual. No 2 people have exactly the same hair color. First off, we want to talk about the types of melanin that's contained in the cortex. And I've never liked this because it comes back and tells us that natural hair color can be a combination of both types of melanin, called mixed melanin. But it tries to tell us to start with that only These fall into eumelanin, these could fall into pheomelanin. So eumelanin is the melanin that gives black and brown color to hair. Pheomelanin is the melanin found in red hair. Very dark hair and most brunettes contain this pigment. Blonde hair contains a small amount of pheomelanin. Natural hair color can be a combination of both types of melanin. This is called mixed melanin.